Shalom and welcome to the weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. Looking today at Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 11. In the previous verse, the Lord had warned that he is going to strip away from the vineyard of God's people the branches, many of the branches, not a complete destruction. He's going to leave a remnant, but he's going to remove what needs to be removed. And here in verse 11, he's going to give an additional explanation of why that's going to happen. Let's go ahead and read the verse in Hebrew. It's not a very difficult verse and pretty short. Ki vagod bagdu bi bet Yisrael uvet Yehuda neum Adonai. For, or because, bagod, uvagod, here, because we have a vocal sound in front of it, so we don't have the dagesh, the light dagesh here. But what form do we have here? Well, this is actually an infinitive absolute from the verb bagad, which you can see right there. And one way you can tell it's infinitive absolute is to look and see if you have a conjugated form of the verb right next to it on either side. In this case, we're being followed by this one over here as a perfect form of it. And this is with the u formative. This is going to be a third common plural. And this is a cal, as this infinitive absolute is also a cal. So when you see this sort of construction here, we know it's going to be an intensification usually of the main verb in one way or another. And that's what we find here. Now, bagad means to deal treacherously with. It's used in the sense of betrayal or to something like that along that line. So, for they have betrayed, they have indeed or very distinctly betrayed. So we need to literally, for betraying, they have betrayed or dealt treacherously against me. Bagad usually takes its direct object with a be form here, so it's against somebody, and this is the first common singular suffix. Well, who's done this? Who's the subject of this third plural over here? Well, it's the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Declares Yahweh, an oracle of Yahweh. So this is the overall description. Now he's going to fill that out in the following verses 12 and 13. We're going to see that a little bit more. But it's this sense of treacherous behavior against God, which is bringing the judgment upon them. So pretty easy in its analysis. Let's go ahead and hide our work here and just look at a couple different translations real rapidly. There's not a whole lot of variety and variation in the translations. The NIV says the people, so instead of just the house of Israel and Judah, it's the people of Israel and the people of Judah, replacing that for house, have been utterly unfaithful. So there's the utterly, that's coming from the infinitive absolute idea, which intensifies the main verbal action. They've been utterly unfaithful to me, declares the Lord. The Christian Standard Bible, in a similar way, they, the house of Israel and the house of Judah, now they've kept those a little bit more literally, have dealt very treacherously. So dealt treacherously, that's from the verb bagad in itself, with me. This is to me over here, but this is with me. And the very idea, that comes from, obviously, the infinitive absolute once again. This is the Lord's declaration. And then just one more with the Amplified Bible. So we have unfaithful over here, we have deal treacherously here, and the Amplified, which is an intensified paraphrase, so to speak. It kind of puts everything, keeps everything together here. For the house of Israel and the house of Judah have dealt very faithlessly and treacherously. So they put both those ideas in there, and they are both in this verbal idea here. Usually, I would prefer just treacherously is enough to get the idea across, but Amplified doesn't want you to miss that, so they put both of them in there. Against me, says the Lord. The Lord knows what his people have done against him. He's going to define it a little bit more in verses 12 and 13. We're going to see the way they reacted toward God and even toward God's prophet and God's words. So check back with us soon as we continue working through Jeremiah 5 in the weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. Shalom.